But I'm wondering if one of the reasons people ask for less help or feel like they have to do it more themselves now is because when you ask people who you're not in a relationship with for advice or are untrusted, you get called an idiot a lot. The majority of what's online is going to be critiques and criticisms. And so you've been scared maybe to look for that help because what the world has taught us is, well, if you ask a stupid question, you're going to get a stupid answer and you're going to get called stupid along the way. Yeah. But that's not how a village actually works when you're all a part of the village. Right? Like your Facebook parents group is not your village. Well, welcome to IPC's podcast, which has been on a long hiatus, but we decided that we were going to sit down and have a chat about family ministry, specifically kids ministry, because, you know, there's, I think, some things we wanted people to know about it, but the reality is when you try to write an email or make an announcement at church, it's usually pretty short form. Or if an email is long form, somebody actually has to sit down and read it. But I thought,
who reads emails?
Right, Brittany. If we just sat and talked for a little while, people can listen in the car or in the tractor or wherever they are. Yeah. Less tractors probably in the winter.
I would imagine so.
And so we just thought we'd spend a little bit of time talking about family ministry and kids ministry here, and because we think it's really important and we want people to know what's going on and why it is. So, Hi, Brittany.
Hello. Excited to be here. Excited to talk about.
How long have you worked here? Has it been a year?
We were just talking about this.
Yeah.
I think the end of January is when I was hired. I think I started the beginning of February. So.
Pretty close.
Almost a year.
Yeah. And how's that going?
Oh, yeah. It's so fun.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Having a good time?
I was talking to my sister this morning on the way into work, and she's like, how's work going? And I'm just like, I just love what I get to do. Yeah. I just love these kids. I love our youth and our leaders, and just everyone I get to connect with on a weekly basis. It's just, it's like the most fun I've ever had in a job. So it's awesome. Yeah.
That's really cool. We'll probably spend another podcast another time talking about more of the youth side and how that's grown. But we wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about kids ministry. And if you're a person who doesn't have a kid or doesn't think this is going to be interesting, I totally understand. But I ask you to hang in for a little bit because it's a missional conversation. It's a large church conversation. I think this stuff matters. You've been sort of looking after or in charge of our kids ministry here for the last year or so. Yeah. How's that going so far? What's that been like for you? What's your experience been? Maybe highlights or whatever, but how's kids ministry treating you here at IPC so far? Yeah,
it's been a lot of fun. It's like, I look forward to Sunday mornings because I get to spend it with kids and leaders in kids ministry. And we just always have so much fun. I'm not just saying that because this is about kids ministry, but we honestly just, we have a lot of fun. And these kids are amazing. Like I had some chats with parents this past Sunday and they're like, my kid like in Jumpstart is like, we've been teaching about the Holy Spirit and we've been going through the book of Acts, and they're just like, like really grasping this concept of the Holy Spirit. And that's just like so life-giving and exciting for me to hear that like these kids like ages like 4 and 5 are grasping like concepts that like obviously we're still like, learning to understand as adults, but like at that age group, they just like take what you say and it's like, yes, this is truth. And why is it truth? Because it comes from the Bible and like, that's all they need. And so it's just so exciting to see like these young minds being shaped and like getting excited about the things of God. And it's just, it's the most rewarding thing.
That's cool. And that leads into, sort of the first bit here, and in part you've answered it by just like, why is this important? Like a lot of kids have, like a lot of churches have a kids ministry or Sunday school or a church school. If you go to an older, more traditional church, I heard a leader actually use that term this week, and every time I hear that term, I'm like, oh man.
So good.
So whether you call it, Sunday school or kids ministry or kids something or whatever you want to call it, why is it important? First of all, and then just because every church has them doesn't mean they're all the same, right? Like they're not all made equally. I'm not saying ours is like the most unique, but we are intentional about how we build it.
Absolutely.
Right. And so what does that look like too?
Yeah, I think like even when we just think about the mission of our church to introduce people to Jesus, to deepen faith and to serve others, like we can kind of just think about that in the context of adults, and we can think about it in the context of like larger church services and outreach events and things like that, which is all really amazing and really true. But I think sometimes we like just fail to make that bridge to like kids. And yes, like they are people and they are loved by God and they are just as valued by God and by us. And so, yeah, we have the opportunity to introduce kids to Jesus, and we have the opportunity to walk alongside them as they deepen their faith. And we have the opportunity to serve them in our journey to serve others, and also give them opportunities to look like, to figure out what it looks like to reach out to their neighbors, both locally and globally, and love them. And so, yeah, it's just like, it's what we are all about as a church. It's just in the context of kids, in the context of youth. It's just, yeah, it's really exciting. Like we've seen some kids come to know Jesus this year for the first time, just like unchurched families coming. And I taught Jumpstart on Sunday, and there's this little boy, and we were just talking about Christmas and just like getting excited and preparing our hearts for the coming of Jesus. And he just looked at me and he says, "So it's not all about Santa?" And I was like, "No, it's not all about Santa." And we just talked about the birth of Jesus, and it's just like these really humble questions and conversations that we just get to have with kids as they discover who Jesus is and why it's the most important thing that they will ever learn.
Yeah. That's really cool. It's always fun to watch kids figure stuff out. And they ask questions. There's no shame in how you look yet, or, oh, I should have known this. They're curious. They ask.
Yeah.
It's great. It's so much fun. What kinds of things are we doing to help that out? Right. Like I think of, well, I'll get to that in a minute. What's a day in our kids ministry look like? So most people aren't in kids ministry, which is something else we're going to talk about here in a minute. But it would also be weird if all the adults went to Discovery.
You should. It's so much fun.
Most people don't get to attend it and
Yes.
and learn there. So what are people not seeing that's happening? Like, what do these ministries look like? So there's nursery, and then there's your preschool.
Yeah.
Like your JKSK, and then your like grade 1 to 5. So
Yeah.
what do those look like?
Yeah, they all look a little bit different, and we're intentional about like meeting each age group where they're at. The part that you probably do see is that we have most of our kids in service, because we just value families being together and the whole church being together. So we spend the first few like worship songs together as a church, and then we have announcements, and then kids are dismissed into ministry. And so, we have our nursery age group, which kind of goes up to age 3, and the majority of this class is just focused on nurturing and caring for the littlest members of our congregation and supporting parents as they're leaving their kids alone for the first time, maybe with other people, and just walking them through like, hey, like this is a safe space to learn how to do this as a family. And we love your kids, and we're going to support you just as you're learning these steps as a family. But also just, like big emotions at this age, and just, caring for them, and coloring with them, and just making it exciting for them to come to church. We have a little guy who just was like terrified of being in nursery, and like mom and dad would stay with him and whatever. And now he just like I saw him last Sunday or 2 Sundays ago, like walking so fast, like by himself, just like beelining it for the nursery. He's like, let me go, let me play, let me like see my friends. And so that's what our nursery ministry is just all about, is getting kids comfortable, getting families comfortable, and really just solidifying that this is a safe place, and we just love their kids. So yeah, that's our nursery ministry. And then our kindergarten ministry, which is kind of ages 3 to 5. We have more of a structure and a lesson. And we walk through a curriculum that coincides with our grades 1 to 5. So if they're siblings in different age groups, they're all learning the same things, just at a different age level, and they can go home and talk about it. And we send out like questions every Monday for parents to kind of review what their kids have learned in kids ministry on the Sunday morning. And so, they come together, they're singing songs, they are learning a lesson. Our teachers kind of all just bring their own personality to how they teach the lesson. Mm-hmm. A lot of times we'll involve food if we're teaching about like a feast, or we went fishing the other week when we were learning about fishing, a story that involved that. So like we do lots of fun interactive things. And then we'll often, make a craft and just really repeat that main lesson of like what we're learning. And just really like, hey, when your parents come pick you up, like what is the one thing that we're taking away from this? Like what is this one truth that we can hold on to? And then just like asking them questions and hearing like what their thoughts are about it. Like we talked about the angel coming to visit Mary this past week. And I was just like, how do you think Mary would have felt? And just, like hearing their responses of just like, maybe she was scared. Maybe she was this. And like, how would you feel if an angel came and visited you and told you like some really big news that was going to change your life? And so just making it like accessible for them to relate to. So that's what Jumpstart is all about, our kindergarten ministry. And then grades 1 to 5, we have a little bit more of an emphasis on small groups up there. And so we have like big like room leaders or teachers that come in and will teach the lesson and make it age appropriate and accessible for them, and often involves a lot of activities and games at the age group. They just want to move around and interact with one another. And so that's kind of an emphasis up there. And then we'll split into age groups for like small group time. And so they're able to just get around a table, get around a circle. We have small group leaders that are like leading those times, and they just ask questions about the lesson, hear about the kids' weeks, like just sit around and pray for one another. Maybe they'll do a craft in that time, but they really get to dive into what they've been learning, but do it alongside their peers and with the leadership of an adult who cares.
Yeah, that's really cool. Discovery has become really something over the last few months. We've seen, an increase in attendance in the church, which isn't necessarily something we're like actively working towards, but it's cool to see. Yeah. When more adults come, often more kids come. Mm-hmm. And so what's the number? Like year over year, like we think our average attendance is almost doubled or a little bit on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
And a lot of those kids are in Discovery. Yeah. And so we're at the point now where you've got a room of grade 1 to 5s with like, there's been weeks up there where there's like 55 kids, right?
Yeah, we've broke 50 a couple of times.
So like, that's a lot. Yeah. That's a lot of kids in one space with 4 leaders and 5 grade, like a 5-grade spread. Mm-hmm. I'll pretend I'm injecting you with truth serum. It's exciting. It's awesome. Kids are definitely learning about Jesus and they're having fun. Yeah. But how's that going?
Like if we're honest, like there's only so much that you can do in a room of 50 kids. Yeah. Like,
is one of the things get them all to stop talking at the same time?
Yeah, getting them to listen, that is a challenge that we face every Sunday. But it's just like classrooms don't have, like in schools with trained teachers, don't have 50 kids. And so like to expect that we're going to have 50 kids in the classroom and it's going to like go smoothly is like, it's not what we get. And so, it's one of the challenges that we're facing is just like, how do we make this a space that our leaders are feeling supported and it's like a manageable group, but also that our kids are able to like learn and like have
for sure.
Have a successful morning. And so, that's definitely something that we're wrestling with, and we're looking to split the classroom into 2. But we're going to need
So what does that look like? How do you, in a perfect world, how do we want to do this? Because we've actually spent a lot of time talking about this.
Yeah.
So, because in a long-term perfect world, you actually like to do that in nursery too, which I can ask about in a sec. But for those grade 1 to 5s, what would it look like to be able to, help out those kids to have them have a better experience and more of an opportunity to learn about God?
Yeah. So we'd really love to split it in grades 1 to 3 and then grades 4 and 5s. A lot of our grade 5s are just kind of like a little bit checked out. It's either too young for them or they're just like there to goof off with their friends. And it's just like, we really want it. Like our small groups are great for that. And our large group leaders are just like the most fantastic and patient people and really do a great job at, trying to meet all the age groups. But it's just really hard to capture like an 11-year-old and a 7-year-old all in one lesson. I sure can't do it.
If I was in grade 5, and that's the weird part, right? You sit there and they're kind of checking out, which makes sense. And I never did kids ministry consistently. I did enough youth group from kids from grade 6 to 12 in the room at the same time to know that there's really only so far you could make a big group go.
Yeah.
Because and what we don't want is for grade 5 to just be a checkout year because of circumstance.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit what's happening.
Yeah.
But you don't want it to happen. Like the risk is if you don't cater, like that can happen for the grade 1s too. It could be a checkout year for the grade 1s.
Totally.
So splitting those two like makes sense.
Yeah.
But logistically, right?
Yeah.
You need the people to do that. Before we get into that, because we're going to talk about volunteers and people in a minute, we've also had this conversation about breaking the nursery up.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like? Because people sit there and go, oh, like they're kids. They all seem to, it's not like they're too young. They're not bothering each other. But why would we want to, put that into, and what would those two different groups look like?
Yeah, so we'd love to have like a nursery and a preschool classroom. And then, our current Jumpstart classroom would be our kindergarten class. And so we'd kind of have our current nursery, which is ages 0 to 3, be split up into 2. And so, we have a lot of babies in our congregation that don't necessarily come to nursery because we have a lot of toddlers and we have a lot of like busy bodies and
you don't want them to get run over,
shopping carts that are flying everywhere, and like it's a busy classroom. And we've also been like seeing a rapid increase in numbers of kids in this classroom.
Have we had not like 15 or 18 kids in nursery?
We have had over 20 babies in nursery,
which is a lot of kids under 3 in one place.
It is a lot, and it's a lot for our volunteers. And so we're also recognizing that kind of that 2 to 3 age group really could use some structure, and it would actually make their transition into kindergarten a lot easier when it's a fully structured program. But also they have minds that are curious. Like we got, there's some parents of 3-year-olds in this classroom that their kids are asking big questions and they're like looking for help.
Yeah, for sure.
And which is totally awesome. But we're recognizing that, these kids are able to learn things and they want to learn things. And so giving them a program that's, not all the way fully structured the full hour, but we do 15 minutes of, worship song and a story together, and giving them just like the opportunity to learn something and do a craft or something together, I think would be really beneficial for this age group and beneficial for the parents in our congregation too.
As the parent of a 3-year-old, especially an old 3-year-old, which is because her birthday's in April. So like when Waverly went into kindergarten, she was still 3. Yeah. Renly will be like 4.5. So it's just this weird, and she's older than all the kids in her like preschool daycare. Yeah. And is just so like she's bored.
Ready.
She's so bored.
Yeah.
And it's hard as a parent because you're sitting there going like, she's actually capable now. Yeah. Of picking this like more up. Yeah. And thank goodness for Waverly, who's already taught her how to like count to 20 in French.
Of course she has.
Right? Yeah.
So good.
And so, I think that's your secondary one. The discovery one, the nursery one is more like, we'd like to do this because we think it would benefit.
Yeah.
The discovery one is like, we need to do this yesterday.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it's just not functionally working.
Yeah. And like in April, when we moved to a new policy, Plan to Protect, like we're going to have different ratios that we're going to have to meet in classrooms that are mandated by our policy, and like, just the safest way that we can operate as a kids ministry. Yeah. And so thinking about that in terms of nursery, like when we have 20 kids in the classroom, like we're going to need 7 adults to meet that ratio. And then we're having 27 kids or 27 bodies plus parents that stick around. Yeah. And like, we will need to split that one sooner probably than later as well. Yeah,
for sure. So let's talk about that. And again, don't turn it off now because that's really great. That was so interesting to learn about kids ministry, but I don't want to hear about the volunteer part. Like, please stick around because this is actually important. Because if you feel like kids ministry is important, then this is actually the part that makes it go, right?
Yeah.
And this is always the push and pull of being in ministry or being in ministry and leadership is people, will say, hey, I'd love to have this program or I'd love to have this. And we, from an office on a Tuesday afternoon, like it's not hard to build that out and to set it up. But just like anything, in order to run it, other people need to run it, and we can't hire 25 staff. So volunteers is just one of those things in a church that needs to happen. And so we've made a lot of calls for volunteers, but we are still really short of even the way we're functioning now, let alone if you wanted to split a class.
Yeah.
Talk just a little bit about, where we're at, like practically this church. Like we could have a whole big conversation about volunteering and all the different ways we could try to motivate people to or not to. But I think the beauty of the long form here is like, let's just sit and talk about us for a minute because we can. Yeah. What's going on right now, like volunteer wise in those ministries? And then what do we need to do in order to get to a place where we're not even looking at each other going like, now we can do this, we can do this. Like where do we need to get to be functional? Which I think if, again, you both cornered us, we would go, it's working, but I'm not sure it's functional all the time.
Yeah. And not if we continue to grow at the rate that we're growing, right?
And that's it.
If all of our kids that are like semi-regularly plugged into our program showed up one Sunday, we would be in a lot of trouble.
You'd have 100 kids under grade 5, let alone the
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So we need people. And I'm not just saying that, like, we don't just want like bodies in the room. Like we want people that see the value in our kids and want to come and like love them in this really practical way. It's just so essential. Like these things that we have the opportunity of teaching these young minds, like has the power to change their life forever. To impact their walk with Jesus for the rest of their life. And I think sometimes we might lose sight of that because we're so like, oh, but this classroom is crazy and, and I don't know if I can, handle kids running around and, not listening and whatever. But like for that one kid that is sitting there intently listening, like it makes it all so worth it. And so, yes, like we need people that are willing to step up and teach. Like, I think that's like a big thing for us. Like if we split classrooms, we're going to need some key leaders to come in and say like, yeah, I'm actually willing to do some like prep. Like all of our volunteers, we ask for a commitment of once a month serving. And we just need those people that are going to step up and lead a classroom and kind of take on a little bit more of that weight and responsibility of like the planning side and implementing, teaching the lesson. And then we need those people that are like, okay, maybe teaching is not for me, but I really want to build relationships with kids. I would love to sit down in a small group and pray through what they're walking through. or come alongside. We have a lot of youth volunteers. We were talking about that this morning.
Well, let's talk about this for a minute.
Yes.
So this is the only church that I've ever been a part of where this is the case.
Shout out youth.
Yes.
Yes.
And this is actually like, it's great, but it's also a bit of a red flag, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
Right? This I'm allowed to say these things, so it's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
Or at least I'm not afraid to. There's so many churches or people that I have talked to are like, if the youth should do this, youth should get more involved. Or why are the youth? We have more youth volunteers on a Sunday morning than we have adults.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's not even close. Well, it might be close, but like, it's like if we didn't have junior highs in kids ministry, we wouldn't have a kids ministry.
No. Yeah, we wouldn't.
And that's one of those things that we're really actually struggling with, because we're sitting here going, like, do we have 25 or 20 adults maybe total in the ministry?
Maybe.
I'm not even sure if it's that many.
Yeah.
And we've got that many youth like running around doing stuff too, but those youth don't count for the ratios that we actually need. Mm-hmm. That also means we've got 250 adults coming on a Sunday morning, and we've got 20 of them serving in kids ministry. Like, it's just not sustainable. Yeah. So first of all, give your shout out to the youth. Yeah. And then talk about why it's actually important that more adults step up. Both from a ratio perspective, but also just from a leadership perspective. Like, there's a part of me that, even just as I'm talking and thinking out loud right now, that goes like, it's great that we have all these junior high leaders, but if I was a junior high leader at some point, I'd be looking around going, where are all the adults? Like, why are we running this ministry? And that's not to say that the adults that we have aren't, right? Like, that's not counting the ones that we have that are doing a great job, but like they are all over this thing. Yeah. So give the youth their flowers, but then we need to talk about, like, we've got a huge gap here. Yeah.
No. And like, our youth are so essential for this ministry. Like, it's really...
And it's good.
Yeah.
We're happy they're a part of it.
It's so good.
It's growth. It's serving. It's all the things you want.
Yeah.
But usually the youth come in and supplement.
Yes. Yeah. And so we need adults to come in and to, support our youth, because like, also they are learning how to do this for the first time, and they're looking for examples on like, what does it look like to serve? And so it's also a really cool discipleship moment, like for adults to serve alongside our youth, and to build relationships with them, not, in a unilateral way. Like, it's just, no, we're alongside each other. We're all a part of the kingdom of God, and we get to do this together. We are like on mission together, actively serving together. And so it's a really amazing way. Just, as the other part of my role doing youth, like, it just makes me really excited, and I'm really encouraged. But we need the adults to come alongside and to give them that example of just like, no, this is how we serve. This is how we're going to pray for our kids before they get into this classroom. And this is why these things are so essential. And I think it shapes our youth more than we probably know or are aware of, but also gives them a sense of community while they're here at church, and gives them connection to adults. Like, it's this whole idea of multi-generational ministry, like in active like play, which is so amazing. Like, this is what we want. But we need the examples. We need the adults to come and to be a part of that, because without our adults, like, this all kind of falls apart. And so we need those people that are like, we value our youth, we value the generations at this church, and we have something to offer. And maybe you're sitting here and it's like, but not me. Like, I don't know. I can't teach a lesson. I've never done that before. Or I don't know how to sit in a group of grade 3s and talk about what they have just learned. But like, these grade 3s are just looking for someone to come and to give them intentionality and time, And so you don't have to be a teacher. You don't have to have like so much experience working with youth or with kids, but you just like, yeah, you need a heart that's willing. And these kids, like, they're looking for people who are genuine. Kids can just see through so much. And so like, I think they know when people are just there because they love them, not necessarily like have all the skills ready to go, but just like they're there and they want to be intentional and they want to be present. And that means so much more than anything else could.
That's, we were just talking earlier about how like, the kids in Jumpstart are asking, they're just not afraid to ask the question that they don't know the answer to. I think about, that and then port that over to this concept of so many adults go, well, like, I just don't know. And it's not for me, or I don't have the skills, or I don't have the Bible knowledge. But then you got a whole bunch of kids in grade 7 going like, yeah, I'll do it. And it's right. And so like, you're sitting there going like that, maybe that's the heart that we need to take like that. And if you don't think kids in grade 7 and 8 are self-conscious and starting to look over their shoulder all the time, but like, right. It's like those guys are sitting there going like, we'll take the leap. Yeah. And I think, sometimes we get in our own head as grown-ups, but this might be one of those moments where we look at the kid in Jumpstart and we look at the kid in junior high and go, well, if they can do it.
Surely God can use me too.
Right.
Yeah.
Functionally, yes. Because again, I think I would argue that like we're sustaining a ministry right now, but it's probably not super functional in the way that it could be or should be. Like we need actually quite a few leaders.
Yes.
Like based on the conversation that you and I had maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, and we made an announcement a few weeks ago, and we did have 8 or 9 people sign in. Yeah. Most of them are headed towards nursery, which is fine. Yeah. We needed help there. Yeah. But is our number like probably 35 or 40 actually? Like, and that sounds like a lot, but that gets everybody to once a month, which is then not a lot. It's the many hands like work kind of deal. But I think that's probably the number we're looking at. Yeah, we're
probably in that ballpark. Yeah.
So how do we do this? Like what, it's, I don't want to sit here and try to convince people, but convince them or not, like at some point we're going to run into moments where either a classroom is going to be too big that people are going to turn kids away and it's not going to be safe, or we've seen lately some of our leaders just go, I just can't do this anymore. It's not that it's too much to do it. It's just too big and there isn't enough. Yeah. There isn't enough outside help. Yeah. What would you say to people who aren't sure if this is them? And how can we start that conversation?
Yeah, that is the $1 million question right there. I think, like, really honestly, like, kids ministry is a part of, like, kids are a part of the church. Kids are a part of God's family. And, if we truly want to introduce people to Jesus, if we truly want to deepen our own faith, if we truly want to see other people deepen their faith, if we truly want to serve other people as Jesus did and set other people up to do that well, if that's truly our mission, not just as a church, but as a family, as an individual, as a follower of Jesus, then like, I think that this is for you. Like, I know that sounds really generic but like, if you have a heart that's willing, like, we have a spot for you. And we have kids that, are just waiting for people to connect with them. Like, I think it's the beauty of the church is that we're all like, we're just diverse and we're all different. And like, I know that every kid that comes to youth on a youth night, like, I can't relate to them all. I can't connect to them all, because I'm just different than a lot of them. But I know that we have a team of youth leaders, that there is at least one person on our team that will connect with every kid. And that is so beautiful. And I'm so grateful that I can say that about our team. But I think it's the same for our church. I think it's the same for generations. Like, if you have a heart that's willing, there is a kid that needs your input, that needs your life experience, that needs you to be praying for them. And yeah, is just like can be eternally impacted by what you can bring.
I don't know if I've told this story on this podcast or not, but I'll tell it again. If I have, and I apologize, it's probably about 2 minutes. So if you want to hit the skip button 3 times once you start, I start. I didn't do kids ministry a ton, but obviously I did youth ministry for a long time. And I was recruiting a youth leader once. Her name is Julia. And I said, I think you'd be a great leader in this ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, yeah, like I've been interested in it before. Like I've thought about it. And she goes, but like I can't run games. And I went, that's fine. Like I don't need you to run games. Like, we got other people we can run games. She's like, okay. She's like, but I can't lead music. Like I can't sing. I don't need any instruments. I'm like, yeah, that's okay. Like we don't really usually, we've got that area actually covered. And she's like, okay. Well, I'm not teaching every week. Like I do not feel comfortable enough to get up in front of those kids and teach. And I'm like, yeah, no problem. Like I do that every week. So you don't have to worry about that. And she stood there and then finally looked at me and she's like, well, what's left? And I went, I just need you to show up and be yourself. And like, she's like super bubbly and like, not everybody's outgoing. And that's fine too. Cause we need the people that are reserved because the kids that are reserved find the leaders who are also reserved.
Yeah.
The quiet kids never talked to me, which is fine. We had quiet leaders for that.
Yeah.
But I just said to her, like, I just need you to show up and be yourself. I'm going to throw you in a small group with 6 kids in grade 7, and I just need you to be you. And she's like, well, that seems like there should be more to it than that. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, there really isn't.
Yeah.
Like, just show up. And, what we've said, like, your greatest ability is availability. Like, just be there.
Yeah.
And like a year later, oh my gosh, she loved it. She had a blast. And that's what it can be here too, right? Like a slow start, a nervous moment. It can feel like your first day at a new job.
Yeah.
But you'd be amazed how fast you just slide right in.
It's so true. And there are some people that are currently serving in our kids ministry that like you wouldn't look at them and know that they are like, they're not your typical, when you think of a kids ministry volunteer.
Yep.
They're like grandpas and dads with teenagers, and like kids like will wait for them to get into the classroom and see where they're going to sit and sit all around them. Like those boys in that discovery classroom like are longing for like that example and cling to those people. And so I think it's just really exciting because like, we need everyone in those classrooms because kids need those people in their lives. And like, we just don't know, like that was so impactful for me as a youth, like just not having a father figure in my life, like having strong male leaders in youth, like changed so much of my like teenage experience because like I had an input that I just like didn't have and couldn't find anywhere else in my life. And so it's the same thing that we get to do here with the kids in our kids ministry and the youth in our youth ministry.
And I can tell you as a parent, like I think a lot of parents I don't think a lot of parents here at this church in specific look at it as like an opportunity to like, oh, like let's have the kids go. Like I don't have to be a parent for an hour.
Yeah.
Although certainly there's been days where it's been like, ugh, you don't have to parent for an hour. Well, like, we know like, and that's just part of being a parent with young kids. Like every once in a while, you just don't want to have to parent for an hour. But it is different. So like I would look at you and go, so I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, but they're both girls. I don't get to parent a 10-year-old boy.
Yeah.
And that's fun. Like it's different. One, because they don't have to parent them. I just get to lead them and hang out with them. But like that wouldn't be like it doesn't feel like an extension of that.
Yeah.
Because it is something different. It's a different type of relationship. And it's like, so I would sit there and go, well, if you're a parent with kids and you're like, I don't really want to have to look after more kids, which is an objection I've heard. I'll sit there and go, grab a class that is different than from what your kids are, because then it'll automatically feel different. Yeah. Because the context is different, but also you're going to get to flex muscles that you don't normally get to flex at home. And that's not tiring. That's just honestly, it's just fun. It's one of the reasons I loved youth ministry so much.
Yeah.
It's like, in what other world was it culturally acceptable for me to play mini sticks with a bunch of teenagers every week? Like, I don't get that anymore around here. You guys won't play with me in the office. Like, but like, there's stuff you can do in kids ministry that's just fun.
Absolutely.
And so it's just different.
Totally. So good.
People talk to you if they want to get involved.
Yeah.
You know, let's say there's people that, you know, for one reason or another, really just genuinely can't do it.
Yeah.
Can they contribute to kids ministry in another way that would be helpful?
Absolutely. Like, please pray for us. Like, anyone listening to this podcast, like, that's just a really practical way. I think sometimes prayer doesn't feel like an action. But I think it's like, we really need prayer for our kids and for our leaders and for our ministry. Like, we can't do anything that we are doing or trying to do or working towards without the power of God. And so please pray for us. But yeah, we have a bunch of ways that, like, you can be supporting us. Like, when we move to more classrooms, we're going to need people to help decorate and make those classrooms a reality. When we, like, prepping curriculum and materials, like, if you are an administrative person and you want to do that sort of stuff, like, there are so many different ways to get involved, so many different needs. But yeah, please just be praying for our kids and everyone involved in our ministry, and the parents and the families and the homes that are impacted by what we get to do here at church.
For sure. We've talked before about the concept of, like, when you're a church that's growing, you're almost always chasing volunteers. Because the other thing we probably wouldn't do is, if somebody walked in here for the first time this week, we wouldn't throw them into a kids ministry classroom next week.
Yeah.
Like, we actually wouldn't do that, because, you know, establish yourself, figure out, you know, make sure you're going to stick around, let us get to know you a bit. But, you know, a lot of people have been here now for 6 or 8 months. Like, it's probably time to get involved in something. And we know that if we're a church that continues to grow, that we're always going to be chasing it a little bit.
Yeah.
But like, it's almost like that catch up gap that we're in there right now, where we sort of need to catch up to where we probably should be.
Yeah.
So we can maintain out. Any other thoughts about, you know, kids ministry in general before, you know, we head out, or any other things that you wanted to talk about, or something maybe I was supposed to ask you that I forgot to?
Yeah, not really anything except for, like, thank you to parents for all that you do. Like, we wouldn't be able to do what we do without, like, a partnership with parents and families. And, like, we get your kids for 1 hour a week and you get your kids for the rest of it. And so, like, just, I think that's a really big part of, like, our heartbeat and, like, our intention behind our programs is we really just want to come alongside and resource and partner with parents as you are the primary disciplers of your kids. And so, we're here to support you, and we love you. And we don't see all that you do, but I can just imagine the half of it. And we're just so thankful for the ways that you are caring for your kids and how you are teaching them about Jesus, and for bringing them week after week here to our programs and connecting them to the church family. And so, we're just thankful for parents, and we want to come alongside and partner with you.
Let's end on that instead of ending on the volunteers, because this is, did you ever read Sticky Faith, Kara Powell?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, so like, you know, all the research that they did and everything, it's this concept that, you know, we talk about ratios for safety in a classroom, but they talk about for every kid, like, that every kid should have 5 adults that influence them. But then the other side, then the point that they make, which is the one you just made, is, you know, your average Sunday school teacher or kids ministry leader is probably going to get 35 or 40 hours a year with these kids, and you're going to get 5,000. Yeah. Like, resourcing parents is actually something we really care about. Yeah. Because we know that like, most of the faith development needs to happen at home. Just talk a little bit about the emails that you send, but, you know, other ways that we hope that we can be supporting families in the future. And what does a family do if they feel like, hey, I need a little bit of extra, like, I need a bit of an extra boost at home? Like, can they contact you? Do you have stuff for them?
Yeah, please reach out. Like if you're just feeling like, yeah, we had a parent like reach out a couple months ago, like during our What to Say series of just like, oh, my kid is asking these questions. Like, what do I say in response? And that is just such like, that was so encouraging for me for a parent to be like, oh, like, I don't quite know how to navigate this, but I'm going to reach out to the church. And I really hope that is something that parents feel like they can do, because we want to come alongside you. Like we don't necessarily have all the answers. Maybe I don't because I'm not a parent, but like I just like we really want to come alongside parents and families with whatever like them and their kids are walking through. And the more information that we know about what your kids are navigating is so helpful for us. Like when I have parents that come and just be like, hey, like my youth is going through this, just so you're aware. It's like so helpful for me to know. It's like, oh, maybe I should get coffee with that student and just check in with how they're doing. But like, I wouldn't know that unless parents resourced me with that information. And so if you're just feeling like, hey, my kid maybe needs some influence that's not me, and just needs an outside voice, please come and talk to us. Go and talk to one of the leaders in your kids' classrooms, or come and talk to me, come and email me. Yeah, like we would love to walk alongside you as you navigate those things. But yeah, just also want to encourage you that like, maybe if you are a parent listening to this, or maybe if you're not a parent listening to this, or your kids are older or out of the house or whatever, like you have a part to play in this too. Like it's not just me and it's not just you that have resources and encouragement, but this is like an opportunity for us to be the church for each other. Mm-hmm. And maybe while you're, sitting in nursery watching, your baby that is screaming and crying, you can just talk to a nursery volunteer and just say like, hey, like, what do you suggest about this? Like, I think there's an element of vulnerability that is so important in this conversation. Just saying like, hey, I need help. Like none of us have all of the answers. And this is like, yeah, it's just, I think it's a struggle for our society as a whole. It's like, we just feel like we have to do it all on our own. Mm. And like, please do not. Like we get to be the church together. And there are people that have walked through exactly what you're walking through, and they have, and they have experience and encouragement for you that nobody else can give. And so, yeah. Just be open, be vulnerable, come and talk to us, talk to the leaders in your kids' rooms, because they love your kids. And we all want to see families thrive here.
Mm-hmm. I wonder, and now we're going to go off on a tangent, but I'm just, one of those things that I've been thinking about. You're absolutely right. Like you've nailed it, which is, it's whether you want to say it takes a village or whatever, like, yeah, actually that's correct. One of the interesting things that social media has done is it's brought the village closer to the other villages. Mm. But I'm wondering if one of the reasons people ask for less help or feel like they have to do it more themselves now is because when you ask people who you're not in a relationship with for advice or are untrusted, mm-hmm. you get called an idiot a lot. Right? Like I've been on these channels where somebody will come on and ask a legitimate question and they'll just get how could you think about this? And it's like, there's this like every parent has always felt a certain amount of, am I doing enough, or should I have done this or whatever? One of the cool things about social has been, you can find information faster, you can get ideas, you can be inspired. One of the killers is it actually has made you more afraid to ask for help.
Totally, yeah.
Because the majority of what's online is going to be critiques and criticisms. Mm-hmm. And so you've been scared maybe to look for that help, because what the world has taught us is, well, if you ask a stupid question, you're going to get a stupid answer and you're going to get called stupid along the way. Yeah. But that's not how a village actually works when you're all a part of the village. Right? Like your Facebook parents group is not your village. That's people that are just yelling at you over the wall. Yeah. Like, I don't know, like I'm introducing a concept now that is a little bit different than what we're talking about, but I think parents are struggling with. Can you expand on how that works from a spiritual aspect? Like if you're a parent, Like maybe you're a parent who's gone to church their whole life and now their kids go to church. And you're like, I don't want to leave Sunday school because I don't want anybody to find out how much I don't know about the Bible. Because everybody probably assumes I should know more than I know at this point. But that's like, I don't think that happens as much. I'm not saying people weren't self-conscious about it. But when we live in a world where it's just scrutiny, criticism, scrutiny, that actually creeps into here. And that's a problem because it doesn't allow us to be vulnerable and learn something new. And the amount of times that I've sat in a room and haven't known something and I've just gone, yeah, I didn't know that, which has allowed everybody else to go, oh yeah, neither did I. But everybody was afraid. Like, I wonder if we parent like that. I wonder if our spiritual development at home is stunted by we're afraid to ask our village.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just thinking of the passage in Philippians that Paul is talking about, like running our race and throwing off everything that like hinders or entangles us. And I think that is like a lot that is like broader than this conversation. But I think in terms of like parenting and comparison and teaching kids and, you know, not wanting to do it the right way, like we're looking everywhere else except for the finish line, which is life with Jesus for eternity. And so I think when like we just like we have to be so intentional about fixing our eyes on the prize, which is Jesus and a life with him. And so like I maybe this is oversimplifying it, but like I think when we can refocus on our goal, when we can refocus on our goal for our kids, our goal for our kids and our kids ministry is to know the person of Jesus, to have a relationship with a living God. Like when that is our focus above everything else, when that is actually like the main goal and the main, just focus of our lives, and of our attention and of all of these other things. It just like, I think it's a lot simpler than we probably think it is. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And I think also realizing that everybody at this church, everybody that at least has made it through this podcast, but like everybody that is invested in this community loves your kids. Everybody that is invested in this community loves you and wants to see you succeed as a parent, wants to see our kids ministry thrive, wants to see every single person that walks through this door have a relationship with a living God. It kind of helps it just put in a little bit of perspective for us.
It's not the scary Facebook village. Like it's the church family.
This
here.
is the village. And we're all working towards the same goal. And we all want to rally around each other and like run this race together. We're not like racing against each other. We're not like, we all have the same goal. And we all just, we're working together and we want to see your kids on mission with you.
It's just like there's so many layers to that. Like the number one hurdle is, you know, I don't know enough, or I'm not this, or I'm not that. I mean, enough is a comparison word. And, you know, the law and commandments and sometimes the morality of Christianity gets twisted and gets a bad rap. But like, you know, I often say in jest, like, you know, somebody will get something cool and I'll go look, I know I'm not supposed to covet my neighbor's goat, but like that car is really sweet and I wish I had one, and it's like fun. But like when you practically look at this, like you're not supposed to covet the other things that people have, not so that you don't have anything, but because it so much skews your ability to just exist. Like it's just, you can call it a law, you can call it a commandment, but the reason that God gives us these instructions is because it's like, you function better when you don't compare yourself to other people. You just do.
Totally.
Right? And we want our kids to like learn that, but we need to be able to step out and then, you know, every moment where it's, well, I don't know enough. Enough is the killer word there. Enough compared to who? Compared to when? Compared to what? One of the scariest things about our staff team is that everybody's really smart. It's actually terrifying for me. Because like in theory, I'm the leader, right? Like I'm at the top of the org chart. Like I'm supposed to have some kind of, and I'm not actually. But really, right?
Yeah.
And the scariest part with working with a group of 7 really smart people is that you find out a whole lot of things you never knew.
Mm-hmm.
And I constantly have to be telling myself that it's okay.
Yeah.
Right. Like, we had a staff meeting yesterday where 2 or 3 things came out and I was like, those things did not come out of my mouth. And a couple of those things were, I was maybe a little embarrassed that I'd missed them, but I was only embarrassed because I was comparison shopping myself against other people.
Yeah.
And when we do that to our kids, we're just like scripture has good ideas in there for a reason. It's just like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know, like, and maybe we'll end on this and I'll pull you into the area of the vulnerable. Mm. I did youth ministry for 15 years and always felt like I was chasing it. Mm. And you're a lot more connected to their culture at this point than I am. 1, because you're a lot younger than I am, and 2, because you're actually doing the job.
Yeah.
But like, there must be moments where you feel like you're chasing it a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. I learn like new words every week. New memes every week. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, no, absolutely.
But you have to.
Yeah.
Like, you have to step out. It's just one of those things.
Yeah. And it's like going back to what we talked about earlier. It's the beauty of the diversity of the church. Mm-hmm. We are all so different, and we get to come under this unified mission. And we get to serve alongside for one amazing God. Yeah. And it's why we need everybody.
Yeah, it's really cool. Thank you for, working here and being awesome. We appreciate it. Hopefully people can be encouraged by some of this. And honestly, we want our kids to grow up and have a knowledge of Jesus and know what's going on. And in order to do that, we, as the church has always needed, whether it's now or 2,000 years ago, we just need people to tell them about it. So we'd encourage you to think about that and consider that, whether you've been here for, 10 years or 10 months, getting an opportunity to serve alongside and learn something from the kids is always really cool.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Like, you learn stuff.
Yeah.
Like, so your faith is encouraged.
Yeah,
like, I walk away every Sunday teaching and I'm just like, wow, like, I feel so encouraged and that I have learned so much about who God is through these kids. And so
the
amazing.
Worst kept secret by lead pastors is the amount that they learned in the week leading up to the sermon that they just gave.
So true.
Right? Like, what is it? Half of the stuff that I'll say in a Sunday is stuff I knew before the beginning of that week.
Yeah.
It's always an exercise.
Yeah.
So, all right. You and I will sit down again, maybe in the new year, and we'll do the youth version of this, which will look different because I think culture is, just the way culture is shifting is affecting teenagers a lot. It always does.
Yeah.
But, I feel, again, like, I was in youth ministry for 15 years. I've been out of it for 4, which means I've missed 1 full high school cycle, which is the first time I've missed a high school cycle since I was 18. And I haven't got a clue what's going on. I am so, like, my baseline, I can still talk to a kid, but like the cultural shifts, like, through a high school cycle are insane.
Oh yeah.
And so we will maybe do a podcast that will then be obsolete 6 months later, but it will be fun to just talk about what that looks like.
So good.
All right. Thanks for everything you're doing.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Thanks for listening, all you people.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
We'll talk to you in the new year.
Yeah. Oh man. So good.